Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Tonelico reaction, as requested by Ziggy Cuff yet again and my executive producers. I was given a little bit of background about the context for this song and what lore and myth it's talking about in-game, so I am aware of all that, at very least going into it, which is pretty uncommon that I have that much context, but it's also kind of nice and sometimes a little bit spoilery. It's kind of hit or miss whether or not I want the context or not, so I'll choose to read it or not depending on how I'm feeling. But for this one, I know the context now, so I guess I'm going to hear what this one is really all about and what it sounds like. And without further ado, let's go! God, I love their language. I know there's like 3 or 4 of them, but I just love that effort of having conlangs and sometimes just straight up made up languages. This one's starting to kind of feel a little bit, a little Ghost in the Shell, like standalone complex. Not anymore. Well, kinda. Now we've entered Eurodance. You know the vibe. Honestly, I kind of love the literal translations. I appreciate it when people make them more poetically accurate too, but sometimes it's just better to get the outright story. No trying to rephrase stuff. I'm really just getting lore with this one. Okay. Honestly, not a turn I expected, but it makes sense. Of course not. This is a very classic story in like all cultures have something very much like this. Like the sole survivor because they couldn't bring themselves for that one person, whoever it may be. Ooh. Okay. Gotta love the dark messages from such a bop, right? At least they know when to take their time like this and actually like match the tone. Oh. Oh. Ah. Good old like kind of a negative variant of Romeo and Juliet. More negative. Well, again, just mostly lore on that one, but at least it gave me kind of an idea of how this world's mythos works, more than I've really had a clue up till now. So I'm not going to get into too much of the compositional stuff because I've talked about that around in circles at this point. I always touch on the same subject, so I'm mostly going to focus lyrically for this one. And some of that does cross over a little bit with how they handled it in the composition, but mostly it's just lyrically. For example, the way that they juggled the lyrics makes a lot of sense because it seems like they were separating each individual like messaging style or system with a different language system. So like the story interim stuff was in Japanese, and then the more emotional parts were in one of the in-game languages that felt a lot more beautified, and it had this kind of gorgeous swell to it. You know, it had a little bit more emotional backbone to it. I'm assuming that's probably the one that's called Hymnos that Ziggy Cuff told me about in the description of this song. I'm not entirely sure, but it would totally make sense. Hymns are very emotional pieces, so it would make sense that a language based around that concept would be emotional, but you know, that's just me guessing. Either way though, I love how they did that. Giving each individual message system its own language system makes the entire thing feel a little bit more structured, and you're able to separate the lyrics and what's happening in the story just by understanding that there's a change of that lyrical system. So that's really clever. I'm sure they've done that in other songs, but without the context that Ziggy Cuff gave me for this one, I really didn't put that together till now. So that's probably something that's been happening for a while and I just hadn't noticed. And I also enjoy the classic things in compositional awareness of just, again, making sure that they're shifting which style of music, which emotional backbone they're giving to the piece with the message being told. So like when Hymnos came in, a lot of the times it was a lot more calming and had more swells to it and stuff that kind of knew when to dissipate. There was more wash to it. It didn't have nearly as much energy as like the Japanese parts did, or even the other language that I'm not entirely sure. It like started more strong with that one. So it's like, okay, there's more going on here, and I appreciate that they're paying attention to when and how to handle that, and making sure that the language is fitting for that emotion in the song all the same. It's, again, just really clever use of the in-universe items that they have at their disposal, the language in this case, and just having multiple variants of that. And again, I love conlangs. I love original languages. I love that effort when they put that into games. I've talked about it in other Tonelico and CL No Surge stuff. It's just, oh God, I love when they do that. It's so good. And all the other stuff with the compositions of just having such tight harmonies and just really playing around with things like triads and making the harmonies really not super beautiful is just such a neat sound, especially when there's an energy behind it that's a little bit more dark, like in the mentions of people being killed in this one. They were really like cranking that limit of what you should do musically and basically ignoring it by just doing whatever they wanted to make it sound more unsettling, and that works really well for the context. So if you're understanding the lyrics, or in my case just reading them, I'm able to put all that together like, oh, that's why this is sounding this way. Usually you can at least get the gist if you don't understand a language, and you can just hear it in the emotion, and this song is very much that, but it helps when you do know what's going on and like what exact emotional stings are happening. And it actually feels like there's a lot of parallels here with Bacchanale, the Samson and Delilah song. Beautiful, beautiful piece. If you haven't heard that, by all means, look that up. Or if you're watching Blue Orchestra, if that's something that you're into anime-wise, Rise, then that's their the song that they play in season 2, and it's so gorgeous the way that it's manifesting this energy of being frustrated all the time, like the welling up of that emotion. They talk about it a lot in the anime as well, very well. I think they did a fantastic job with that season. But the point being there is that this shares a lot of that emotional swelling. It's not exactly the same. The story is not Samson and Delilah by any means. It almost feels like a Samson and Delilah if they were gods, and also throw in a little bit of Romeo and Juliet in just the weirdest way, because you get that like anger behind it that Samson and Delilah's story has, while also having the tragic love side of the Romeo and Juliet story. So that's also nice that this story is almost entirely this like portmanteau of a bunch of different cultures, experiences. And like I said, there's a lot of cultures around the world that have very similar stories in that way. I mean, Samson and Delilah and Romeo and Juliet are two completely different inspirational pieces from two completely different parts of the world. So you can just see that already. So it's just more of this game and their composers and their writers taking everything that they know from all of these other cultures and bashing them together, even for the inspiration of what they end up writing for their mythos. It's just really cool. I really love how they're doing that. And now that I'm aware that that's more of how they handle things, I'm going to have to pay more attention to the lyrics going forward, because up to this point, I've been mostly listening to the music and talking about that. And the well has started to run a little bit dry, because while each song in its own right is beautiful, the techniques are very much the same between them, because they're usually made by the same 2 or 3 people. And, you know, you're just going to run into a little bit of a wall eventually, and I have been. So lyrically, this gives me another entire new avenue to actually pay attention to and talk about and discuss for these sections, which I appreciate. And I'm really glad that I ended up reading the context for this one from Ziggy, so I didn't get lost and just go, oh, it's another beautiful song from Tonelico. Who would have guessed? You know, womp womp. Great video, me. Pat on the back. There's definitely points where I feel like I'm phoning it in when that happens, because I cover a lot of games, I cover a lot of titles, and sometimes many of them many times over, and eventually you're going to start getting a little bit bored of one area or one sound that comes out of it. So it's nice to have these new stimuli to focus on and be able to talk about. It's why I'm always excited when a game releases a new region or something, and I'm like, oh yay, new music. It's usually new inspiration, much like this one tells a story. It's a different story than before, so I don't have to keep bashing the same repeat button every single time I make a video. So again, really nice for this one that I was able to understand more of the context, and now I'm able to like apply that to further reactions I do for these songs, because I know there's more. There's already like 3 more from this game series, and in general the Exopico stuff already in my queue. So like we're going to be seeing more, but now I have another avenue to focus on and actually pay attention to what the lore is and how things are going, and just try to, you know, think more deeply about how this world is building itself, because I'm sure that's what they want from me. I'm sure that's what Ziggy wants. I'm sure that's what the other people who have requested these songs in my executive queue want from me. They want to expose me to the lore, so I should really just pay attention, frankly. But I do think that's mostly all I got to say for this one. More of a journey of my own personal self-discovery on how I'm going to handle these going forward, and paying more attention to the details, and kind of start blending more thoughts together a little bit more openly. And I was kind of afraid to like dive into the lore stuff and like really get into that, but if they're gonna be this good with it, I should really just, you know, knuckle down and pay attention. But I'll digress there. Thank you all so very much for watching. If you have another song you want me to get to, by all means drop it in the comments below, and I'll do my best as always to get to those. Or if like Ziggy Cuff did, you want to guarantee that I listen to something, you can always go to my Patreon or my YouTube memberships, where there's a tier that you can force me to listen to anything you want. It doesn't matter what it's from, who it's by, if it's good or bad, none of that matters. That's why it's a guarantee. But if you don't want to do any of that, and maybe just want to follow me and support me for more stuff coming in the future, you know how to do all that, and I will see all of you in the next video. Goodbye!